Welcome to my video review of my custom Hanbon forged katana. This review is going to be a bit similar to the Reddit review I posted, as I am going to be using it as a reference for what I say while going a bit more in depth onto my opinions. I am by no means an expert, but rather what I like to say, a well-informed katana enthusiast. Now, without further ado, let's start. This video is going to be split into two portions, the details of my katana order and the video review, which is going to make up the majority of this video. Now, let's start with the details of my order. First, we'll start with my blade type. I chose 1095 folded carbon steel with a Hanbon I sent a picture of to Hanbon to try to replicate and make a similar Hanbon of. Also wanted it to have a Komaru boshi, which is where the Hanbon turns back towards a shinogi like this, though this request was unfortunately not followed through with, along with my request for the addition of Nikyu. Next up, I chose antique Samigawa panels or rayskin to go along with the brown Ito that I would end up choosing. I want to go for a saya wrapped with rattan with buffalo horn parts, since those aren't that common to see on production swords, so it would help stand out among the many swords that Hanbon has made. I also wanted a Rico ska to see how the ska shape felt, but Hanbon doesn't make their skas in-house, so I don't think they had any available. I went for this brown Ito or handle cord wrapping, since the theme I wanted to go for with this katana was something the average samurai might have had. The shigami here, or the triangles underneath the Ito, are a definite must, because if they are done correctly, they end up making your handle wrap rock solid and nearly unmovable. Now, for the tsuba, I went for the Tsukashi chrysanthemum style tsuba, which I thought added to the elegance of this sword, with the Minuki being chosen since I thought something close to gray or black would look nice underneath the cord wrapping. For the Fuchi and Kashira, I ended up going for an iron Fuchi and Kashira with the bamboo leaf motif, because anything brass would steal attention away from the rest of the sword. I also didn't want a bohi or groove in the blade, because katanas in my opinion look nicer without one. For the sageo, or the cord on the sheath, I went with the brown sageo from Japan, which looks nicer than the common production sageo. For the habaki and seppa, I did want them to be in copper, but this wasn't followed through with, along with the mei or engraving on the tang, and Hanbon didn't want to disassemble the sword, so I just went with it. As I mentioned before, the general theme I had with this katana was something the average samurai may have had. I want to be as faithful as possible to this theme while designing this custom sword, and for the most part, I think I did well. While the dark red saya may not necessarily fit the theme, I wanted to add a touch of personalization to this sword to really make it mine. I was originally skeptical about the idea of having a dark red saya, but coincidentally, after seeing this picture posted on Reddit about koshirai or sword fittings, I knew I had to go for it. As a Reddit user noted, my ska or handle's quality control appears and feels to be better than those seen recently, which includes my Hanbon forged Yaito that I previously ordered and reviewed on Reddit. While the hishigami are visible on the ska, which is a common feature on the Hanbon swords, it redeems itself in functionality in that the triangles on the Ito are rock hard. Like, they actually hurt my fingers to try to push because of how hard and rigid they are, which is a true testament to just how tight the Ito really is. The Mikugi pins, on the other hand, were on the more difficult side to remove, as for a while, I was only able to remove one Mikugi pin and having to damage the other just to remove it. The Fuchi and Kashira, however, are really well cast and have no visible casting lines. The Kashira, just like the Ito, is rock solid and doesn't move or tilt even a little bit. Though the Samigawa panels are unfortunately not inlaid, but rather they are glued directly on top of the ska core, which leads to more protrusions on the ska, which some may not like, which is in contrast to Shadow Dancer skas, which have inlaid spaces for the panels, just like this. This also leads to the panels showing on the ska if the hishigami weren't already protruding, which is something that could definitely be improved upon for a $500 plus sword. The Minuki were also unfortunately put upside down, but this is not that big of an issue, just a minor cosmetic problem. As I mentioned earlier, for the tsuba, I ended up choosing a Tsukashi style tsuba with the chrysanthemum motif, which looks elegant on this sword, but is actually the only thing I regretted picking on this sword. As Matthew Jensen once said in an old review of a Hanbon forged sword with this exact tsuba, it feels like a cheese grater on the hands, and functionality-wise, it is a complete fail, primarily because it is extremely unpleasant to feel with your hands when practicing or cutting. Thus, making it a tsuba I would not recommend choosing. It had actually gotten to the point where I had to completely disassemble the sword and replace the tsuba with an antique one I had lying around, which feels significantly better than the one I had ordered and even looks better in terms of aesthetics. The saya is a beautiful crimson red with a buffalo horn koiguchi and kurikata, and with a partial rattan wrap. It also came with a piece of styrofoam preventing the blade from sealing completely, which was likely done to prevent the blade from getting stuck in the sheath from shipping to another climate, and the wood potentially swelling or shrinking, which would make the blade get jammed in the saya. The saya had no rattling issues, which was something I had faced in my previous Hanbon forged Yaito, and was extremely tight from the aforementioned climate difference due to shipping. As a Reddit user once suggested to me, I left the blade partially unsheathed, revealing half of the habaki to acclimate the scabbard to my climate. Now, let's move on to my favorite part, the blade. The blade, out of the box, came razor sharp and is probably the sharpest one out of all my reproductions. It cuts with extreme ease and outperformed my Shadow Dancer 9260 Wakizashi in its cutting ability. With the Shadow Dancer, I was unable to perform left downward cuts with pool noodles, though this may have been due to poor technique. But with the Hanbon, I was able to perform these cuts with absolute ease, demonstrating to me just how sharp it is. Even though it doesn't have a bohi, it is actually on par in terms of tachikaze or sound with my Hanbon Yaito, even though that one does have a bohi. The Hanbon, on the other hand, looked a bit skinnier than it did in the pictures I had received from Hanbon, though that is not necessarily all that bad. The Hanbon, with its Hazuya polish, came out looking extremely gorgeous and elegant. The Hanbon itself appears to be a notare medare Hanbon with a tiny bit of curve back on the boshi. The hada, or grain pattern in the metal, is also incredibly tight and pretty, which was able to pop out due to the polishing, thus adding to the elegance of this blade. Finally, to end this review, I would like to do a comprehensive pros and cons list. Let's start off with the pros. For the pros, the Ito is extremely tight, the saya has little to no rattle, has a razor sharp blade, has an elegant Hanbon, and has a super tight hada or grain pattern. For the cons, the Manuki were put upside down, the Mukugi pins were difficult to take out, and the tsuba hurt to touch with your hand. Overall, for a $500 plus sword, it met my expectations and was definitely worth it. I would most certainly recommend Hanbon Forge again if you're looking to cut things, whether it be for tamashigiri or for backyard cutting. The sword you will get will definitely meet your expectations as well, just as it did with mine, if not outperform them in terms of sharpness and quality. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you'd like to see more Katana content. And with that being said, I'll see you in the next one.